Thanks, Chair. And I'll be fairly brief. This is a subject that I've traversed a number of times before. I suspect Senator Xenophon might join me on this at some stage as well. I've got some questions about the challenges that are faced by some of our veterans most in need of government support, those being the ones exposed to the radiation of nuclear weapons blasts in the 50s and 60s. You'll be aware, of course, that these veterans would be entitled to all sorts of support had they been hit by an enemy nuclear blast, but of course, because it was friendly fire, they have been given no such assistance. Is the department aware of the correspondence between myself and the British Ministry of Defence on nuclear veterans, in which I proposed a system of ex gratia payments to Australians exposed to British nuclear tests?
Yes.
You're aware of that? And you're aware of the purpose of seeking that sort of assistance, given the actions of the British courts?
Yes,
okay.
Broadly, Senator.
Thank you. Are you able to confirm that the 1984-85 Royal Commission into the tests showed that the Menzies government was fully aware of the exposure of these personnel to dangerous levels of radiation, as well as to that of the local Aboriginal peoples?
Senator, I'm not full bottle on the Royal Commission report, so I can't confirm.
Mr Bales, I think the question is probably better directed to the Department of Employment Workplace Relations, because they would have the responsibility for that.
Why?
It wasn't because it was an occupational employment issue, and it's not specifically an issue for this department. So Mr Bales and I would not have the details of that Royal Commission. Even
though these are veterans? So I think I'm just getting a tiny little taste of what these people have been subjected to. It's always someone else's problem.
Sorry, Senator, no, if I understand the group you're talking about, there's a mixture of Commonwealth employees who are non-service people,
that's right,
service people and civilians and Indigenous people. Yep. And the responsibility for issues to do with that sort of employment issue in a general context would not be this department.
Getting hit by a nuclear weapon is an employment issue. I'm happy to just confine my questions tonight to the veterans. If you don't wish to discuss the Aboriginal population or the civilian personnel, that's sad, but I could understand why. Ms Spears, are you putting to me that you're also not willing to discuss this matter with regards to the service personnel who were hit?
No, Senator. The question was about us understanding the 84 Royal Commission, yep, and that wouldn't have been a Royal Commission report that this department would have been involved in. So I was just pointing out, I think the agency would have been Employment Workplace Relations.
Okay. I guess I can understand why Mr Bales wouldn't have a copy of the Royal Commission at the table, but I'm also not... I don't think it's appropriate to just say that was a workplace matter, getting hit by a nuclear weapon, but let's move on.
Well, just to be fair, that's not what she was saying. She was just simply pointing out the agency that would be best able to respond to questions about the Royal Commission.
You know what, I can guarantee that if I put that to them, they'll refer me to DBA. I know for a fact that that's what will occur, but let's move on. Are you aware that 290 nuclear veterans and their families have put forward their claims for long overdue recognition and compensation to the Australian Human Rights Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been asked or have you sought to provide any assistance to the case that they're putting to the HRC?
We've not been contacted.
Okay. Have you thought maybe to offer any assistance? It's all right if not. If you haven't, you haven't.
We have not been contacted, Senator. I don't know if my colleague, Ms Spears, would comment on the process.
Senator, I'm not too sure what sort of assistance you were thinking that we could provide.
Well, these folk have had doors slamming in their faces for 40 or 50 years. Any kind of assistance would presumably be really appreciated. I'll sketch a bit of context, and I guess that's a reasonable question. We'll come back to it. Their case is that they were used effectively as guinea pigs by the British government, and that was in breach of 3 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Australia had signed by 1948. So Article 3, the right to life, liberty and security of person. Article 5, which is the right to not be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. And lastly, Article 25, the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, medical care and necessary social services. So I'll put to you again, has the DVA been asked to contribute or respond regarding this case, or have you sought to do so?
Senator, no, we haven't, but if I can give you an analogous sort of situation, when the group of British nuclear test veterans went to the UK court system, it was a private action they took to the court. So it's not usual for a government agency to assist in a private action. And so my analogy here is, I understand that this group have gone to the Human Rights Commission. If we are asked to provide any assistance in terms of background information, we obviously can be in that position, but it is in essence an action the group is taking to the Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
We don't have any general standing at the Human Rights Commission particularly.
Okay. If you were contacted by them in a way that you felt you could offer meaningful assistance, you've just said you would do so, or you consider doing so.
With any background information, but equally our responsibility is not to assist in a private action, whether it's before the Human Rights Commission or a court, a litigation in that sense. So it would depend on the nature of the request as to how we could provide assistance to either the group or to assist the Human Rights Commission in any sort of background information.
Okay. So one of those who took the case to the HRC stresses that he and his fellow veterans are not seeking millions of dollars in compensation, that they believe that they deserve proper recognition of what they suffered because of the blast at Maralinga and Western Australia, as well as the entitlement to the same benefits that other veterans have awarded. And what he said was, to not be recognised by the government as having participated in non-warlike hazardous activities is an insult to me, my family, and to all of the veterans and civilians whose lives have changed forever because we simply weren't told the truth. So what's your response to this gentleman? They're not actually asking, they're asking for a gold card, which we've had run-ins here on a number of occasions that have been inconclusive. But actually what they're really after is recognition by the government of what they suffered.
Senator, if I may, I would have thought, I don't know whether it would be helpful to outline the compensation schemes that we do administer that apply to British nuclear test veterans, which I'm sure Mr. Bales could do. In that sense, there are compensation schemes that apply, some of which have been canvassed in the past. Yeah,
I suspect, I guess I've been here, we've had these discussions in very similar formats before. This may be a question that I should put to Senator Feeney, but has the Australian government, through Foreign Minister Carr or Minister for Defence, expressed its support for the British government making an act of grace payments, considering that the British courts have closed the door on the veterans and their families?
Not that I'm aware, and I don't believe so, but I would need to take that on notice. It's not something that I am able to give you a definitive answer about. Okay, let's have a definitive answer to whether or not the government has joined or would be willing to join that call, and if not, why on earth not? And maybe in pursuit of that, and I checked this with the chair before, I might seek leave to table the correspondence between myself and Secretary William Hague, if I can do that, so that you've got a copy. So there's 3 pieces of correspondence, 2 of mine and 1 of his, and I'll leave it there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Have a motion to receive that correspondence?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, it being almost 9 o'clock, how about we take our break till 9:15? Thank you.
Very good.